Reminder, we will start at 10 a.m. If you'd like to ask a question, please find a note card and write your question. Hold it up in the air and someone will come and pick it up. The chance of your question being asked is best when it's one that all legislators can address and deals with issues that will be faced in the state legislature as opposed to issues that will be addressed in federal or local government. You may also submit questions by emailing them to SFLWV at gmail.com. That's LWV, like League of Women Voters. Please include bill numbers if possible. If you don't know the bill number, there's a League of Women Voters member in the back who can help you look it up. And remember to phrase the question so that all legislators can answer. Thank you.
Oh, that's oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm here.
Real straight front row here. Or it's gonna window ever.
Yeah, I'm just gonna follow you.
Alright, I might just go front row.
Yeah. Do you know they got it from? I think when I finish mine, I'll go try some. It smells like it. Yeah. Is there anybody watching live right now?
Hair looks nice.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
No, you're okay. I did it, but no, I know what was really always helpful.
Actually, I was really good. We got the flag, we got the soldier, and we got the lady, and we got the soldier. Well, we got everything in it. We got the flag, we got the poster, we got the sign on the front of the podium, and we got the speaker. Yeah.
Second up.
Are you a homeowner? No. First year paying taxes so the homeowners can get tax relief.
I'm representing the League of Women Voters. I'll be your moderator this morning. We do have sign language interpreters today provided by Interpreter Services, Inc. We have Angela and Amanda. The Sioux Falls League of Women Voters is hosting 2 legislative coffees during the 2026 legislative session. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization. We encourage informed and active participation in government and work to increase understanding of major public policy issues and influence public policy through education and advocacy. The legislative copies are being live streamed on the Sioux Falls League of Women Voters Facebook page and will be on our YouTube channel as well. Special thank you today to our sponsors and partners in this endeavor. The Cheeseman Center for Democracy at the University of South Dakota, AARP South Dakota, Change Agents of South Dakota, the Sioux Falls Education Association, UFCW Local 304A, Southeast Technical College, Media One, and the South Dakota Advocacy Network for Women. If you would like to ask a question, please find a note card to write your question using one of the cards provided. Hold it up in the air for one of our runners to pick up. And the chance of your question being asked is best when it's one that all legislators can address and deals with issues that will be addressed in the state legislature, opposed to issues that would be addressed in federal or local government. You may also submit questions by emailing them to SFLWV@gmail.com. Include bill numbers if possible, and if you don't know the bill number, there's a League of Women Voters number in the back that can help you look it up. Remember to phrase the question so that all legislators can answer, as we will not be reading questions addressed to individual legislators. Please understand that I may combine questions on a similar topic. If your question does not get asked today, please feel free to stay after the event to speak with the legislators individually or contact your legislators after the event. We would ask at this time that you please silence your cell phones. And also we ask that you take any conversations to the hallway so as not to disrupt others who are listening. Today we have invited legislators from districts 9, 10, 11, and 12. And we will hold a second legislative coffee where we have invited legislators from districts 13, 14, and 15. That one will be held on a Saturday, February 21st at 10 a.m. here in the same location at the hub at Southeast Technical College. I'd let you know that Senators Hahn and Representative Arlant and Dara are unable to attend due to scheduling conflicts. Senator Carr and Representative Schwanz asked to join the second legislative coffee due to scheduling conflicts today. We look forward to them joining us on February 21st. We did not receive responses from Representatives Soy or Holder, and we understand Senator Beal is recovering from an illness, and we wish him a speedy recovery. We understand that being a citizen legislator can be straining on a legislator's time, but the League of Women Voters recognizes that communicating with citizens should be a high priority in our representative democracy. We thank those legislators that took the time today to be present and encourage the absent legislators to join us in February. The format today will be as follows. Each legislator will introduce themselves, indicate what district they represent, committees on which they serve, and how long they've served in the legislature. Legislators will then have 90 seconds to respond to questions. There is no rebuttal time. Legislators, if you wish to respond to a question, please raise your hand, catch my attention, and I'll call on you when it's your turn. As we near the end of our coffee today, each legislator will have an opportunity for a 90-second closing statement to comment further on issues brought up or to comment on a topic that was not covered in questions. Legislators, the timers are located right here in the second row there. Thank you. I lost track of where I'm at. Okay, they will have signs to let you know when you have 30 seconds left. Do you want to show that? And when your time is up. And we thank you for following the time limits. And if you should go over the time, I will let you know. Before we start, just a reminder to our audience to refrain from any actions that would potentially disrupt or delay the questions and responses. This includes applause, hand gestures, or raising signs. The League of Women Voters has been conducting these legislative coffees for decades, and we appreciate the civility that has been a hallmark of these events. So we will start now with introductions, and I'm just start on my right with Representative Jameson.
Well, good morning. Thank you for having me and all of us. So Greg Jameson, District 12, which is kind of the southwest part of Sioux Falls. Just for reference, the Empire Mall is in District 12. And I serve on local government. I serve as the chair, and then I'm also on state affairs. This is my 8th session coming up, and I will not be returning. I'm running for another office, which still involves the city, if you know, but anyway, thanks for having me today.
Thank you. Representative Weems.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for hosting us. I appreciate this. The last time I was at a legislative coffee moderated by and hosted by the League of Women Voters was 17 years ago. I've served from 03 until 08, and then I took a 16-year hiatus, and I jokingly said to everybody, if you guys mess this up, I'll be back. And I'm back. I'm in my first term back, and I currently serve on taxation and transportation and military and veterans affairs. Formerly, I served on education, taxation, and tribal relations. So, very happy to be here today and look forward to the questions and the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Healy.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here. Thanks to the League of Voters. Democracy always works best when we are all active and engaged. So I really appreciate seeing you here on a cold Saturday morning. I am in District 10, and that is the McKinnon Park area all the way out north past Washington High School. I have been in office for 8 years now. I serve as the minority leader for the House, and I serve on, in the past I've served on Education, Health and Human Services, the Rules Review Committee. I currently serve just on State Affairs, and I am also on the Executive Board for the Legislature, which kind of makes decisions in the off-season. Thank you all for being here.
Well, we understand that Senator Larson is on her way, so she will not have this opening time. But we will get her engaged as soon as she's here. All right. All right. First one is House Bill 1184. And if you notice, the legislators have their computers here. A lot of them at this point in the session have not seen some of the bills, so we give them some time to look up the legislation, which is why we request that you have bill numbers on your questions. House Bill 1184, the question asks, it says it's about the legal definition of boy and girl, male and female. The question asks, how do we guarantee that this does not lead to legal discrimination? House Bill 1184, who would like to be the first to talk on that one? Give them a moment to take a look at it and read it. I see them scrolling, so it must be a long bill. So we'll give them a second here.
Okay, so this bill looks like it is basically defining boy or male, girl or female as what you were born at birth. There is a part in the bill that states that you cannot use any public money for any activity if you are inconsistent with any of those terms. I think you all, if you've been here in the past, know where I stand on this. This is just another piece of legislation that is chipping away at people at our trans community. It's unacceptable legislation from my perspective. I'm really tired of seeing legislation that just sits and picks on people and tries to really enforce ideas that certain people in our legislature have. I think that we have more meaningful legislation and policies to focus on. We really should be looking at ways that we can be using our public spending, like for education and ensuring that people have good access to healthcare. And this is just another example of time not well spent in our legislature.
Thank you. Representative Jameson.
Yeah, so this bill hasn't gone through our body yet. It is out there to be determined or probably presented in State Affairs, which I am on that committee. So I'm just scanning through it, and I guess I can't probably get to the details of it other than it does seem as unnecessary language or effort. I know there's a lot of issues related to defining a man and a woman, a boy or a girl, those kinds of things. I don't know that it's probably necessary just reading through it right now, but there'll be a lot of this discussion. There always is. It seems to kind of be a recurring discussion. And I guess I'm just going to have to listen more to it, but initially looking at it, I see it's unnecessary.
Thank you. Representative Wins.
Thank you for the question. I have to agree, it hasn't gone through the process yet. So if it goes to State Affairs, it will probably come out and go to the full House. I'm not sure this is something that is adding value at this time. I'm quickly looking at this, and there's some content in the bill that talks about full-time equivalent. So I'm a little concerned about that, and we will have to see where this goes and where the discussion goes, because I'm not sure what the intention is with that.
All right, we'll move on to our next bill, which is House Bill 113 on campus carry. Again, it's House Bill 113. Is there a general legislative support for this bill that seems to make it easier to carry a gun on college campuses? Excuse me, it is 1133. 1133. Thank you. So again, the question is there a general legislative support for this bill that seems to make it easier to carry a gun on college campuses? Representative Healy.
I can give some background on this bill. So basically what this bill does is currently in state statute, if you are on a college campus, you can carry a gun if you have an enhanced permit. In order to carry a gun, that enhanced permit is extremely hard to get. You have to go through a lot of courses. While I don't love that policy, it does strengthen this policy on campus, but this bill specifically takes that out. So you do not have to carry an enhanced permit. I think that's incredibly dangerous. I think kids who are between the ages of 18 and 22, usually that's typically who's in college, aren't fully grown and aren't fully aware, their brains aren't fully developed. And I'm hopeful that this bill will die, knowing that this bill last year came and they put in enhanced permit in order to make it more palatable for my Republican colleagues.
Thank you. Representative Weems.
Thank you for the question. So I went to South Dakota State University, and I remember at that time, people could, and I don't know if they could actually have guns in their room, but there were a lot of people that hunted, and they would get up early and go hunting and then go back. we changed the law to say it was okay to have it in the trunk of their car back then. So this bill did pass last year. I mean, not the enhanced permit passed last year. And I would just stick with that. I wouldn't be looking to remove that enhanced permit. So that's kind of where I stand on it. I did like it when they just kept them in the trunk of their vehicle. So.
Representative Jameson.
Yeah, thank you. I think the question was whether there would be legislative support for it, and I would argue that there probably would be. South Dakota is pretty strong Second Amendment state, so just imagine this: you vote against this as a member, you're going to be attacked as diminishing your Second Amendment rights, and that just doesn't fly very well. So I think the question was whether there'd be legislative support. I would suspect there would be.
Thank you, Senator Larson.
Sorry, I'm late, by the way. This is an unfortunate bill, and it was unfortunate last year because the campus security, the local police, and everybody else who was in the security business in the areas that we were talking about came out and spoke against this bill originally, and now this is kind of expanding that bill. So it's not a great idea, but here we are in a state where we really, really believe in the right to bear arms, and we all support that, but legislators run out of new ways to show the public that they really, really like guns. And so they have to bring new little things every once in a while to show their constituents, yes, we love guns. So this is another one of those. I mean, I'm going to be opposing it, but like the good representative said over there, there's enough feeling around this where it will probably pass.
We'll move on to our next bill, which is House Bill 1216. House Bill 1216. It's on the clergy mandate. How will you vote on House Bill 1216 and why? This is a mandatory reporter edition. Again, it's House Bill 1216. Representative Healy.
I was waiting for somebody else to speak up first because this is actually my bill. So what this does is it adds a member of the clergy to the list of mandatory reporters. It also exempts any kind of privilege communication. So let's just say that you are in sacramental confession and if a conversation takes place, it's just removing that. I brought this bill a few years ago and that was a major hang-up amongst the faith community. But I do believe that it's really important to protect vulnerable children. And by ensuring that when a kid is going to a trusted pastor or a faith leader, and they are telling their pastor about abuse, we want to ensure that that abuse is being reported and that that child is getting the help that they need in order to live a successful life and to get out of the situation that they have been placed in. And my concern is that that's not happening because we've heard some stories from our neighboring state in Minnesota that it happened in Duluth for many years. And I'm just trying to remedy that, that situation here in South Dakota.
Representative Jameson.
Thank you. After hearing the prime sponsor of the bill explanation, I haven't read the bill or seen that. I'm reading it now, and based on those comments that she stated, I can't find any reason to oppose it. Seems like a well asserted effort.
Representative Queens.
Thank you. I have talked to people about this bill, and I do think that it protects the clergy from certain areas, but I like the mandatory reporting. I think that's important. When we're talking about protecting children and women or anybody, honestly, I think it's important that we do mandatory reporting. So I do have a little bit of concern, I will tell you, that the more that we continue to expand this, I looked at the list, and there are probably some professions that have confidential information, and I hope that we don't keep going into those areas.
I'm also supporting the bill for all the reasons stated.
Senator Larson. All right, now we'll move on to House Bill 1237, 1237. This requires age verification for online app stores. So House Bill 1237, what specific harm is this bill intended to prevent that isn't already addressed by COPPA, C-O-P-P-A, App Store parental controls, or existing South Dakota law? If you are for, why? If you're opposed, why? Again, that's House Bill 1237, asking what harm this is intended to prevent that isn't already addressed.
I can go.
All right, Representative Williams. Yeah, I'll give her a minute to pull it up so she can talk on that.
Okay, I sponsored this legislation, and the idea was brought forth from Call to Freedom, and I don't know if any of you are familiar with Call to Freedom, but sex trafficking is a huge problem in our state, in our country. I've been to national conferences where we've talked about this, and so I drafted the bill. I want you to know I dropped it Thursday at 11 a.m. or almost 11 a.m. and I have been contacted by many people since about it. The same bill, or almost exactly the same bill, was introduced last year, did not pass. There is, and I'll be perfectly frank, there's some problem with the language. So I'm a big proponent of, let's talk about it, let's see how we can make this bill do the intentions. And I also have, okay, I can't talk about that. I also have another bill that kind of ventures into the same area. And from my standpoint, the discussion is well worth the time. Because anything, again, that we can do to protect children, protect women, protect men who are in sex trafficking, it's really, really important.
Would like to speak next. Senator Larson.
I think this is, I agree with Representative Weems that this is a conversation that really needs to be had. And we did start having it in the last couple of years when the discussion about AI and child access to the internet kind of got going. And I see this as just a continuation of that. We see more and more the downside of having access to screens for children and how that is on a variety of different levels bad for their development. And so I think that this bill is trying to address that. I don't know if the details are going to be right in terms of privacy on the internet and whatnot. There are certainly some issues with age verification for other websites. So if it made logical sense to implement, I would conceptually support something like this because we do need to do more to protect our kids from the dangers of the internet.
Representative Jameson.
I don't know how much more I could really add to that. Really, the intent is good. Can't argue with that. It does boil down to the details, and sounds like the language is going to get revised. I mean, all of these individuals who may have a website or some kind of an app are going to be concerned about limiting people's access to them. But I think it's all in the good, right direction. It's just how they need to get put in the right words.
Representative Healy.
I'm not sure how I feel about age verification bills. We saw one last year that I opposed because it did infringe on people's rights and their privacy. But I need to read through this one to really understand it better. So this is something that I'll be looking out for. in general, I do think we need to look at what we do for our kids, how our kids are using technology and phones, and ensure that they have safe access. And I'm hoping that this bill does that, but looking forward to learning more.
Move on to the next topic, which is HCR 6010 on same-sex marriage. HCR 6010. Two questions on this. As the First Amendment forbids government-mandated religious doctrine, how does HCR 6010 avoid crossing that constitutional line when limiting civil marriage rights? And another asks, with bills like this, what reassurance can you offer LGBTQ plus constituents that we are equally valued and welcomed in South Dakota? Senator Larson.
Well, I feel a bit bad because as I was walking up here this morning, I was like, well, most of these bills we haven't heard yet, and we haven't heard the testimony on them yet. So that's going to be kind of a common theme up here, is a lot of these bills haven't come through committee yet, at least on the Senate side. I believe that South Dakota should be welcome to all, whoever you love, whoever you want to choose to marry, and I will always embrace that perspective. And I've not read this bill to see how this addresses that, but that's my general perspective about the topic.
All right, Representative Leeds.
Thank you. So this has been a topic, it's been a topic since I was in the legislature in 03 to 08. I don't think it's going away anytime soon. I actually like it when the largest court of our nation makes a decision on it, because I think they look at all the issues far much more in depth than we can ever do as a state legislature. We're only there for 38 days, so where I stand personally on it is kind of a moot point at this point, because the Supreme Court has already ruled on it. Now, this is urging the Supreme Court of the United States to overturn the decision. So it would have to go through the process of getting something back into the courts for them to review. So I don't know where that process is. I haven't studied that, but from my standpoint, this is a resolution, and so it's a statement of the legislature. I'm going to read through it thoroughly before I decide how to vote, but at this point, I don't think there's anything that we can do to make the Supreme Court overturn their rule.
Representative Healy.
I don't really need to read through this resolution to know that I'm going to be voting no on it. I said this at the very beginning about the past LGBTQ question, but this is unnecessary use of our time. What's going to happen is everyone is going to stand up and give their opinion about it and kind of just talk trash on the House floor, and we're going to have to listen to it, and it's going to be an hour debate of listening to this crap, and then we're going to have to vote on it. And I don't think it's going to pass. I really don't. But I am really tired of people who are so unwelcoming to individuals in our state. I wish we could move on and again, focus on things that actually matter and the reason why we are in here and the reason why we all ran for office, to help people have a better life and a good future South Dakota. So I'm a huge no.
Representative Jameson.
Yeah, as mentioned before, it really is an opportunity for legislators to have a public statement about their position. It's a privilege, I suppose. At the end of the day, that's all it amounts to, is a public comment about a particular position, and I see it as a complete waste of time.
Move on to our next topic, which is House Bill 1067 on child custody. Again, it's House Bill 1067. The question asks, will you work to preserve the best interest of the child, which is in quotes, as the standard for child custody decisions, or provide a rebuttable presumption in favor of joint physical custody of a minor child. And that's House Bill 1067. We'll give them a moment to look that up. Representative Eby.
Okay, so in the past, we've seen legislation like this that really takes away the best interests of the child, and it actually has struck out best interests of the child. This is a really interesting, different pathway to that, except instead of striking out best interests of the child, it's saying that joint physical custody is the best interest of the child. And we know that that is not true, because sometimes there are, unfortunately, big issues and big problems that families are facing. And there could be abuse or neglect, and joint custody is not what is best for that child. So I will not be supporting this. This actually came from our other representative, unfortunately. So it's a no for me.
Thank you. Anyone else want to take that one up? All right, we will move on to the next one then, which is House Bill 1056. This is regarding SNAP benefits and excluding soft drinks from SNAP. The question asks, will you vote to support it? How will small stores and shops enforce and track these items? Will items that are not soda or juice that have sugar count as items to be excluded? And that's House Bill 1056. Senator Larson.
Well, I mean, over the past year, we've seen an overall disinterest in SNAP, TANF, and these things are starting to be eroded. And so in general, my position would be to expand these two programs because I think that given that one of our main platform issues is affordability, and this bill goes right to, deals with a program that goes right to that. That said, you know, we have this debate on a regular basis about how a person or how would a state remove a certain product from, you know, certain benefit programs. And it becomes really, really complicated and a little bit judgmental in some cases. Like, I don't like soda. I think that it actually is kind of a public health issue. It is not good for our health. At the same time, I will be considering issues of privacy, issues of us making sure that we're not gently clawing away at our social safety nets. Those are the issues that I'll consider as I vote on this bill. I'm probably not going to support it, but I do appreciate the idea and the dialogue about how these really processed foods that we have in our lives that have become ubiquitous interplay with our public health.
Representative Jameson.
You guys are picking out all the winners. All the challenging ones. So again, this is a bill that hasn't come to us officially in a committee or on the floor, but it has been talked about in the media, I guess. You know, I guess it probably will boil down to some just common courtesies, I guess, or too much control over somebody's benefits. And I get the idea, you know, hard to argue that soft drinks and other sugar items are good for you in any way, and the program is intended to help people, but you know, there's still some decisions people should be able to make on their own and take care of themselves in the best way they think. But I'll listen to the discussion. There's a lot of people who've signed on to this bill. It seems like maybe kind of a trigger topic, if you will, for a campaign or something. just to, kind of crank down on all this, but I'll listen, I guess.
Representative Ewing?
Okay, I think if I recall the question, it's asking whether this is enforceable, and I don't think it is. So based off of previous conversations that we've had about the grocery tax, and I can't remember all the details because we've seen a lot of different ideas over the past few years. If I recall correctly, there's a conversation about making some exemptions, and the conversation was, you can't do that. It's impossible to do that for stores. It's more regulation for stores. It's near impossible. So just based off of that knowledge, I just don't know how they're actually going to succeed making this actually work. Besides that, I'm not in support for what was previously stated by Senator Larson. I don't think we should be policing this. And I'll be voting no.
Representative Williams.
Thank you. Well, I am one of the sponsors of this bill, and I think it's a valid conversation. I've got a relative who's really trying to eat healthy, and so they are looking at what are the ingredients in what they eat. And I don't think we can do that for all foods, but I really don't know that soft drinks add any nutritional value to a person. And I can say that because that's critical of myself. Growing up, I had at times as many as 6 Diet Cokes a day. That's not very healthy. I don't do that anymore, but I really think it's a valuable discussion. I'm not sure if we can enforce it or not, but let's talk about it.
We'll move on to our next topic, which is Senate Bill 159 on underage marriage. Again, it's Senate Bill 159. The question asks, can you explain this bill and how it would change the current status of underage marriage, and do you support it? Senate Bill 159. And we'll give them a moment to take a look at it, read through it. Sure. The question asks, can you explain this bill and how it would change the current status of underage marriage? And then the question asks, do you support it? How would it change the current status of underage marriage? Who wants to take that on first? Representative Williams.
Okay, I have not read through the bill entirely, but it looks like, okay, and I'm not sure I'm in total support of this Senate bill. I am in support of marriage, no one under the age of 18 getting married, and let me tell you why. Because again, I met with Call to Freedom, and sex trafficking is a real issue, and so I think I voted against a similar bill last year, but after having my eyes opened up to some of the issues that go on in sex trafficking, I really, really have a compassion for all of the people that are victims of that and anything we can do to prevent that. So, so I know when I say that, there are people in my background who would say, how can you do that? If our daughter gets pregnant and we okay them getting married, we would like them to be able to do that. And so, I kind of have to take a step back and say, this is protecting people who may be forced into marriage, and I have to stop. But, yeah.
Thank you. Representative Healy.
I won't be able to support this bill because we've seen previous legislation in the past that actually hasn't passed, which should have. And basically, the only policy I will ever accept is you can get married if you're 18 years and older, absolutely no exceptions.
Senator Larson. All right, we'll move on to our next grouping of bills that are going to have to do with schools. The first is 1158, House Bill 1158. This says it's for testing for homeschool students. The question says, I'm concerned about accountability for homeschool children. We'll look at House Bill 1158. All right. Then Representative Jameson, you want to talk on that?
So it's another bill that we haven't reviewed in any way, and I just hate giving you guys trying to read it. So I'm just going to focus on the question at hand. I think, do I support accountability for homeschooling? Really? Yeah, I mean, if somebody's at home homeschooling, there should be something to ensure that the children are getting kind of brought along in the proper fashion. So something needs to be done. It's a sensitive topic, though, for people who are trying to do homeschooling and want to be left alone, frankly. And so don't let them do what they think is best for their children. But in fairness, I think there should be something that should occur.
Okay, Representative Healy.
Okay, so it's my understanding that this bill has been withdrawn, and I'll hear that, but I would agree, there needs to be some level of accountability for homeschool students, and I understand that homeschooling is a good option for some individuals. I have friends from high school who were homeschooled, and I was active in the orchestra with them growing up. It worked out really well for them, but it doesn't work for everybody, and we need to ensure that there is testing. A few years ago, we passed legislation that took accountability away, and my concern is truancy rates have raised because more people are homeschooling their kids, and now they don't have to check in, so we don't know anything about those kids. We don't know whether they're safe, whether they're getting responsible education, and I just don't think that's right.
Representative Weems.
This bill has been withdrawn, so but I'll speak about the topic. I'm a huge advocate of accountability for homeschooling, and I'll tell you why. I have relatives who have homeschooled their children. Some of them are about the same age as my children, and they have gone into college with a year's worth of credits, just done things really, really well, worked in a group around their area that has made them extremely well educated, and so I think they wouldn't shy away from a test. They know their kids would do very, very well on that test. So I'm not so to say afraid of that. I think that's a good accountability measure, and only makes homeschoolers better. So.
Thank you. Senator Larson.
Well, every year we have homeschool day at the Capitol, and a lot of the homeschoolers from all over the state come in and they show what their kids are doing, and they show a lot of science projects and cool stuff that they're doing. These kids that are properly homeschooled are doing really well. What happens though, and I don't know numbers on this, but for the kids that you see in the Capitol showing up with great homeschooling opportunities, there's going to be a kid or two that is falling through the cracks without accountability. And we know that because we know that, at least in Sioux Falls, we have a high number of children who are living either in poverty or near poverty. Their parents are either unemployed or underemployed, and they're struggling. Or there's also addiction issues in the home. So we've got all these people that are going to leave school for other reasons and then be unaccounted for, and that's what I'm really worried about. So any bill that comes forward in this regard, in this topic, that's what I'm going to be considering.
Thank you. The next question on school funding. I'm finding a couple. What should the educators expect in terms of funding And do you support increasing state funding for schools? Anybody want to take on school funding? Representative Jameson.
Two-part question, I guess. What should you expect? You should expect no increases. There just isn't any money. It isn't available, it isn't an option compared to all the things that have to be funded. That's what you should expect. Should we hope for and want to change and increase in that? Absolutely. I believe we all would, and if we had the money, we would. And we're trying, and there's still time. So towards the end of the session, as we lay out the final numbers for the budget, that's when the real determination will be made, if we had money. And hopefully the economy shows some signs of increases. You know, we had the numbers come in for November. We haven't seen them yet for December, which is the biggest, you know, sales tax month of the year. And so if those numbers kind of outpace the projected growth, perhaps there's some room. And I think there's one more other reporting month that'll come in. And if those numbers are great, and I think there'll be an opportunity to fund it. I think we're all trying to do that. But the governor, when he laid out the budget, as a candidate, laid out a budget that wasn't very appealing to voters, but it was pretty honest and fair.
Representative Davis.
Representative Jameson isn't wrong, and what I want to add to that is we've been having a big discussion in the legislature about dipping more into our reserves, I believe, by is it 2.5% more? Yeah, so we're looking at ways that we can solve this problem. If we dip into reserves more than usual, we do need to figure out how that money is spent and what our priorities are, but it seems like a number of us in the legislature are in full support of trying to fund the big three, obviously education included. So we'll see what happens, but just know that we are working on it and we are trying to make something good happen.
Thank you, Representative Weems.
Thank you. I don't disagree with anything that's been said previously. I just want to maybe educate some of you on the process. So what happens is the governor puts through his budget, and that budget right now has 0% increase for what we call the big three: state employees, providers, and schools. Okay, so that's our starting point. So then we take all the bills that all of us have ideas about, we take actual numbers that come in and what we expect the projections to be going further. And when I say we, I really mean the appropriators. I don't do any of this, the appropriators do. And so what they'll do is look at all of those numbers and see if there's any other room. And the budget also had a move from 10% reserves to 12.5% reserves. I think that the governor is looking forward to, he might not think it's going to be as, sales tax isn't going to be as high as we had thought it would be. Some of these revenues that are coming in aren't going to be there. And so he's trying to protect us as a state, okay? All that's going to play out within the next month and a half, because that's how the process works. And when... Okay.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on. Senator Larson, you want to talk on that?
Well, the points that I agree with Aaron on what we said, but I think that we have way too much reserves, and I think that we haven't managed properly over the past many years, and then we're all excited when we have reserves, and then we're like, well, actually, that means that we're not actually delivering the optimum value to the taxpayer. So I think we need to work on that. Obviously, I would be supporting increases for the big three as well.
Our next topic is on school lunches. This is House Bill 1082, House Bill 1082. Questions asked, I'd like to ask the lawmakers is whether they plan to support House Bill 1082, which would reimburse school districts for free and reduced lunches for students. So again, it's House Bill 1082. All right, Senator Larson.
Well, we have the lovely sponsor over here, the prime sponsor of that bill, and she's been bringing it for 4 years, and I'm supporting it 100%. We know that, especially in our district, like I mentioned before, there's a high percentage of children that live either under the poverty line or pretty near the poverty line, and this would help out. I mean, sometimes kids, this is their, their only decent meal in a day. They need to have that nutrition in order to learn in school, and so I think we all agree on this, and thank Representative Whitman for keeping on this issue, and I'm going to be supporting it.
Anyone else want to talk on the school budgets? Representative Healy.
I don't need to add much to that. Of course, I will be supporting the bill. I also want to mention Representative Whitman is holding my baby right now. But yes, I do believe that by giving kids the opportunity to eat at school, then we are therefore helping them be more successful. I think there's a lot of long-term studies that show positive outcomes when kids are fed. And of course, we'll be supporting it. We all want kids to succeed.
Representative Jameson.
One of the lessons you learn in the legislature, you never want to, at least in the current legislature, you want to be on the wrong side of Katie Whitman. She's got a big heart. She's full of energy. She's a good legislator in the body. So I guess I'd have to say I can't argue with any reason that this bill shouldn't pass. There could probably comes a time where what can we afford and what can't we afford, and this is a viable effort. We haven't seen this bill yet, at least it's in this current discussion this year yet. I suppose that'll be happening soon, but I currently can't find a reason not to support it.
Thank you, Representative Lance.
Well, I love this idea, and I haven't signed on to the bill yet, but I see it did come out of House Committee on Appropriations 13-1. So I am a little concerned about the money, but I think if it came out 13-1, I think it has a pretty good chance of moving through the House. I don't know about the Senate, but it'll probably move through the House. So I would be voting in favor of that.
Thank you. Our next topic is the opt-outs. Senate Bill 85, this was referenced here. Question asks, what are your thoughts on Senate Bill 85 and why it specifically calls out K-12 public schools and not all that can utilize opt-outs? Again, it's Senate Bill 85. And we'll give them a moment to look it up. I'll read the question one more time. What are your thoughts on Senate Bill 85 and why it specifically calls out K-12 public schools and not all that can utilize opt-outs? Senator Larson.
I can just give a brief statement about this bill. And no, none of us have heard this bill yet, but I think that there are I think this was a bill that came out of the property tax study, if I'm not mistaken, and there was about 19 other bills that came out of the property tax study committee. Some of them, and I don't know if I will support this bill or not, I probably won't, but in general, I think that the property tax discussion has been, it's going to continue to be a big issue. And across the 19 tax plans, right now, there is nothing on the table that anyone really thinks is going to either provide transformative relief or real relief, or will really fix the problem. So that is kind of the approach that I'm going to be going with.
Thank you, Representative Jameson.
So I think the question was why only K through 12, and I'm only speculating on some of this, and that's I guess my opinion. But certainly it's a Senate bill, so it hasn't come through the House side yet. But the reason is because when you look at our property tax bills, you'll find that education funding is the highest portion of everybody's property tax bill. And so the effort behind this bill is to require any of those opt-outs that have a tendency to certainly increase your property tax bill to be scrutinized by the public. That's the intention, and it's because the focus is on schools and that element of property taxes. And I would probably advocate or suspect it's going to pass. And other opt-outs by other entities are required to do a public vote. And so, just given the climate of things, I would look for it to pass.
Thank you. Representative Weems.
Thank you. So currently, there is a portion of the school funding that can opt out without going to a public vote, and then there's another portion that has to go to a public vote. So when I look at my tax bill, what is listed as the opt-out, I'm actually not sure if that's what's opted out by public vote or what's opted out in entirety. I don't know. Those are some questions that I have. But I do think a bill we passed last year impacts this, because public votes for elected, and I'm not sure what it addresses in here, but if they can do a special election for this, that would be my concern, because if they have to follow the rules that we passed last year, and I think that included opt-outs, so then it would be at the primary or at the general, and that would be concerning to me.
Thank you. Representative Healy.
I probably won't be supporting this, just from what I can tell. I don't know enough. Of course, it's on the Senate, it's coming over to the House. But from what I can tell, it looks pretty much like an anti-public school bill to me. So I will not be supporting that.
And the last school question we have is on House Bill 1017, on alternative placement for violent behaviors of students. The question simply asks, do you support House Bill 1017? House Bill 1017. Dealing with alternative placement for violent behavior of students. Again, we'll give you time to pull that up and look it over.
Well, I haven't heard this bill yet, so I will be listening to the testimony. It is brought by the Committee of Education on request of the Department of Education. So when we hear this bill, they will be testifying and providing their case. And I mean, you know, I don't know this issue that well, so I will be listening and making sure that we are not putting onerous requirements on our schools, and that every kid, even those with behavior issues, gets a good education. And I'm not sure where that sort of throughway goes with this bill, but that's the approach that I'll be taking.
Thank you. Representative Healy.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure where I stand on this yet. I really want to hear from our education professionals. But basically it's saying that if you if a kid has aggressive or violent behaviors, then they shall receive instruction in an alternative setting. Again, don't know how I'm voting yet, but I do want to say, I think if we could, in a perfect world, we would have the ability to take care of violent behaviors, to get kids the help that they need, to get them into counseling and the right treatment in order for them to be able to deal with trauma and all the problems that we're seeing in the school district. So this is a problem. We know that there are disruptive kids in class. We also know that they come from homes where there's probably not a lot of stability, or that there's a lot of other issues going on. So I'd love to be able to take care of those problems as well. And I'll leave it at that.
Representative Weems.
Thank you. Well, looking at this bill, this comes from the chair of the Committee on Education at the request of the Department of Education. So right away, when I look at that, there's probably more to the story, and I don't know what that is. So as the bill progresses, I hope to learn the rest of the story and see what they're trying to allow for, based on situations that have arisen in different schools throughout our state. So, so I think I haven't decided yet, but I think they've gotten more information than I have at this point.
Thank you. Representative Jameson.
Yeah, I don't have much to add really because it has been deferred to another day. Certainly haven't heard it on the House floor, but as I do understand, visiting with some of the other educators and tours that we had this season, or when school started this year, with the school board setting up those tours, there's a lot to learn about disruptive students and kids who are acting out in class, that are aggressive towards the teacher, and the challenges it creates for the teachers and for the other students in the class. So my guess is what they're after here is to find some way to provide a path forward to help students in the classroom, and I think that's a viable effort. It appears as though they may have some other language or something that's coming, and then they'll get it through the committee.
Thank you. We will move on to a series of tax-related questions. The first one has to do with TIP financing. It references 3 bills here. I'll give you all 3. Senate Bill 191, 192, and 203. I think that's a 3. 191, 192, and 203. The question asks, TIP usage varies across the state. The limited use in this area leads to employment and lower housing costs. Do you oppose these bills that limit the use of TIPs, tax incentive financing? So again, Senate Bill 191, 192, and I want to say 203. Representative Jameson.
I'm just going to jump in head first without reading the bills, because the question is, do I support restricting the use of TIFs? And I would generally say no. And so what probably is needed though for the TIF is another review. And other states have offered and provide for a requirement that municipalities who approve a TIF have a third party come in and review it and then give their opinion. That's pretty good legislation. But limiting the TIFs, generally, I think at least the experience I've had in Sioux Falls, they've all been scrutinized by the council, the planning committee, the mayor, lots of people before they ever get enacted. What happened, I think, in Rapid City recently is an abuse of what was the use of TIFs. The number was just way too big. Clearly, the voters decided that. Sioux Falls has done a fine job, in my opinion. So further restrictions isn't what's necessary, but a further review makes a lot of sense.
Thank you, Representative Healy.
These are 3 really long bills that will take some time to review and to understand. But in general, I do believe that this is an issue of local control and one that we should let local governments decide.
Thank you. Representative Wins.
Thank you. In my background, I was on Brookings City Council and Brookings Deputy Mayor prior to moving to Sioux Falls. And so I see the value in TIFs at a local level, not only here in Sioux Falls, but for small towns across our state. And I do think it's a major local control issue. They are working with, maybe they have a local economic development and they're weighing the pros and cons on what that does for their community long term. And if the public disagrees, like has been mentioned before, there are people who are necessarily maybe trying to get a project that maybe really shouldn't qualify. And so I think that was all rectified in that situation. But Sioux Falls has done a great job, and I think other local communities have really done a great job. I think it helps take a blighted area and make it better.
Just in general, for all the reasons that Representative Healy here stated, I definitely think that we should not be taking tools out of local government's toolboxes to do the projects in my view. We shouldn't be kind of laying a whole blanket over the state and putting kind of bans and limits on that. It should be up to the local governments themselves. I do agree that there's been a little bit of abuse and some bad press about TIFs lately, but it really still should be up to the local people.
All right, the next is on Senate Bill 21. The question asks, will you help save the tax refund program for senior citizens and citizens with disabilities? Should it be on the bottom floor for any property tax relief? Another similar question asks, will you make sure that low-income soccer companies and renters will not have to pay for owners' property tax relief? I know there's a lot of bills out there. This one says it's referencing Senate Bill 21. Property tax relief. Representative Lee.
Well, I haven't looked at the bill yet, but just giving a little bit of history, it came out of Senate Bill 7-1, and then it failed to pass the Senate, and there's an intent to reconsider the vote from which it was lost. So I think it's not done going through the process. As far as I'm concerned, if we're talking property tax relief, for people who are retired and qualify under that program, or disabled and qualify under that program, I think we should protect that. So I'm not talking specifically to this bill because I haven't read it yet. But I think we have great programs in place to help people, and we've taken steps to increase income requirements, which I think is a positive step forward. And I said last year in the governor's bill that the increase in income levels for seniors and disabled, that was a really great thing. So all of those programs are on the Department of Revenue's website. Anybody can look at them and see if you qualify and continue to fill those applications out.
Thank you. Representative Lee.
I voted yes on this bill. Already, for the reason that I wanted to support the continuation of this program, and that's how I felt like this bill was leaning. So that's why I voted yes. But it did fail, and then I got where there was a motion to reconsider.
Now Representative Hill.
Okay, I can't remember exactly what was stated as the question, but there was something about shifting taxes onto under renters. And so that's like one of the issues that we've seen in the past 2 years is shifting property taxes into our sales tax. And quite honestly, it's just something that I can't support, because when we're looking at shifting costs, we're looking at shifting burdens, and we're looking at shifting money onto renters and to low-income individuals and elderly and even people with disabilities. And so we have to look at that when we are looking at how we can relieve property taxes. So you don't have we're cooking up an answer from the Democratic caucus, but currently still working through that process. As for this bill, it is something I will support if it happens to make its way over to the House.
Thank you. Representative Jameson.
Yeah, it's a 10-page bill, and I'm just trying to get through it. My understanding is it's increasing some of the limits that's allowable for relief to the elderly and disabled. My guess is you're right, it does shift it over to others, and that would be the concern. And certainly is part of the challenge with any of the property tax relief is to avoid the shifting effort that occurs. And it's almost inevitable of a shift somewhere is going to occur. And so that's probably the challenge they had on the Senate side was not having a shift. relief would be the better solution, but somehow, one way or another, unless there's new money involved from somewhere, you have to shift it. And so, I would envision a support for this bill, because who doesn't want to support elderly people and disabled? They are the ones who are the least, or the most vulnerable, if you will. And so, although it may create a small shift, at the end of the day, that's the group that we need to protect. A lot of us are fortunate enough to be able to pay our own bills and are happy about that, I guess. But the vulnerable are the ones who need it, and I think that's the intent behind the bill. If I summarize it, and if I'm missing it, I apologize, but a shift is going to occur.
Thank you. We're going to do two different questions on data centers. One will focus on House Bill and the other will focus on Senate bills. So we're looking at House Bill 1005. 1005. What is the advantage of this bill, which provides a 50-year tax exemption on sales and purchases of equipment and software specifically used in data center operations? What is your position, and explain your reasoning? Again, it's House Bill 1005. Yep, the question asks, what is the advantage of this bill, which provides a 50-year tax exemption on sales and purchases of equipment and software specifically used in data center operations? Representative Jameson.
Yeah, thank you. So the advantage, I guess, is really that we can open the door to this type of business. A lot of other states, most all other states, frankly, provide a similar incentive for these data centers to come to their state. And so the opportunity is that South Dakota could become one of those states to receive it. That's the opportunity. The challenges are 50 years is a long time, and at the end of the day, what the legislators are trying to figure out is what's the net gain for us to allow a data center like the ones that are being proposed to our state. You provide the exemption on all the sales tax of the equipment that's purchased, but they are still purchasing a lot of electricity, which we get the tax, and they're paying a lot of property tax. Some of them are using a lot of other resources like electricity and water. And are they diminishing it to a point that isn't worth it for us at the end of the day? So we're balancing a lot of things here. There's challenges with this bill, no way about it, no way around it. But the question was really, what's the opportunity? And the opportunity is that we could capture revenues that other states are currently doing.
Thank you, Representative Ely.
So Representative Jameson is not wrong, and every year we get one of those bills that you have to learn so much about. So we're hearing a wide range of perspectives about data centers, obviously about the potential economic benefits, but also real concerns about utilities and transparency and the local impact, as Representative Jameson mentioned, and also water and noise. So a lot is going into this bill. We are all just trying to learn as much as we can right now because it's such a huge bill and has such a large impact on our state. I would love to hear from you. I don't think I've received many data center emails in my inbox, so I'd absolutely love to hear from you on how you feel, because obviously that also will impact my decision. But yeah, as of right now, we're really just trying to gather data and information and truly trying to understand what exactly we're voting on.
Thank you, Representative Williams.
Thank you. Well, my name's on the bill. I signed on to this bill. Currently, 42 states allow for the exemption on equipment. So, so this would make it a level playing field for South Dakota to be in that realm. And so I've spent a lot of time this summer learning about data centers. And I went up to Ellendale and saw the data center that is proposed for a site near Toronto, South Dakota. And when I was there, I looked at everything that was going on. I understand that what they want to put in is a closed loop water system, which is similar to what 3M has in, I think they've both been sold now, but in Aberdeen and Brookings, and I'm gonna run out of time. But what I will tell you is I talked to people. I drove into the town and I stopped and I just stopped random people and I asked them what they thought about the data center, and I got no negative comments, which I thought was really, really interesting. Really interesting.
Senator Larson.
Yeah, this is a really rich topic that the public is very interested in, and I was really, I wouldn't say shocked or surprised, but the city council meeting that happened the other day with all the testimony was a good wake-up call for me about how deeply this is on people's minds. So there's a lot of issues at play, like I've been mentioned, the water, the electricity, the noise, just the general sort of tax break for larger corporations. I will say this is probably going to fall into the category of issues that I vote on based on what I hear from people. Sometimes I vote on things, most of the time I vote on things and I don't get any emails about it, and I make up my mind on my own or with my colleagues. But with this one, I'm going to be really, really listening, because I don't have a moral problem with either way that this goes. We do a lot of industrial policy throughout the United States. 42 other states have similar tax breaks in place. So I'm not necessarily opposed to it per se, but I want to best reflect what people think and the concerns they have and find out what that actual net benefit is, as Representative Jameson was referring to.
I'm going to read the Senate bill numbers here for you on these questions. It's Senate Bill 127, Senate Bill 128, and Senate Bill 135. These are all data center questions. Excuse me. Again, Senate Bill 127, 28, and 35. Please state your voting preferences for these bills that implement protections for communities faced with data center development. Any of those you want to talk on? Representative Jameson.
Just to fill the dead silence generally, these are Senate bills that haven't gotten to our side yet. The question is about protections and restrictions. And that's the balance that we're trying to figure out in all of this, is that, for instance, none of us generally would want to have a data center come in and just suck up all of our water, and then we couldn't use it for ourselves, right? So there's limitations we want to ensure. I think 135 is the one that's probably the one I'm familiar with at least a little bit. It's almost like a ban on data centers. And that's like putting up a closed for business sign out the edge of Sioux Falls or the state. And I'm not for that. But I'm absolutely in favor of providing some kind of guideline for us to follow, so we don't waste or ruin our water supply. We don't jeopardize our own ability to receive electricity because some other business is sucking it all up, so to speak. So we're working on trying to find those protections, and my kind of take is that one size doesn't fit all. Some of these data centers are small, and then some are medium, and some are just bigger than you can imagine on the amount of energy they need. So we're trying to figure it out. I just don't want to put a sign up that said we're closed for business.
So a little bit of my background, about 25 years ago, I rented storage in a data center here in South Dakota for a business that I was running with 3 other partners online. So my message in that is data centers have been in our state for a long time. Data centers in and of themselves are not necessarily bad. What's happened is these data centers are now very, very large, okay? And if you have somebody who owns a data center and is concerned about people in the community and people who are around, they're not going to build it right next to a residential area. That's not what they want. Their goal isn't to make everybody unhappy in the area around them. And then
And there's more things that I could elaborate on that. I will tell you that, AI is here to stay. It's here to stay. And we need to learn as individuals how to utilize it for good, because it's being used for good currently. And any of the young people in the room, I would encourage you to learn how you can use it in your job and make you perform better, because that's what it can do for you.
And Senator Larson.
Well, just when thinking about the data center issue, there's a couple other things that I will be thinking about as we move forward. One of them is, there seems to be quite a lot of backlash against the data center that's been being thought about in Sioux Falls. My concern is that I don't want those voices to drown out the people of Toronto, South Dakota, who might legitimately want their data center there. I have no idea. I haven't looked into the comparative. And like Representative Weems said, one data center is not all the same. Some are massive. I'm not sure what each project entails. I would work towards passing legislation that didn't take one location's problems and implement them blanketly on another location's problems. So that's one thing. The other thing that I'm thinking about as we move forward with this discussion is, on one hand, I don't believe in corporate handouts to large corporations. However, I also want to make sure that businesses feel welcome to come here and to consider South Dakota as an option. And I feel that some of the issues that have come up over the past couple of years have not been exactly welcoming. I mean, people should be able to express themselves, but I don't think it necessarily has been an attractor for a lot of businesses either. So I'm a little bit afraid about what this does to the reputation of our state, even whether or not I end up supporting, any specific data center legislation or not.
Thank you, Representative Healy.
I don't really know if I have much to add on the Senate bills. Obviously, we'll be looking them over, but I just do want to reiterate that you deserve to have a meaningful voice in decisions that affect your community and your utilities and also your tax dollars. So again, we are going to continue to really dive into this issue and understand it and have those hard conversations with a lot of questions that just haven't been answered yet in order to make the best decision for what's best for you guys.
All right, well, that is all the time we have for questions today. We'll move on to closing statements, but before we do, I just want to read some of the topics that we did not get to today, and if you guys want to address any of them, you sure can. There's asking about government employees and the cost of living wage increase, a COVID-19 vaccination requirement, one on protecting certain rights of healthcare providers during reproductive health. Another asking about miscarriage as abortion. And if you guys need the bill numbers, let me know. Another, an act to establish data collection system pertaining to assisted reproductive technology. One on ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine, one on water quality, quite a few on TANF and if that cut is going to be restored. This one is on the state constitution prohibiting the transfer of private property to a non-government entity for economic development. Do you support the governor's proposal to increase budget reserves? And some general issues here, not bill related. And quite a few asking about Senate Concurrent Resolution 604, urging the people of South Dakota to seek the Lord Most High for his healing presence and mercy upon South Dakota, which did pass. So that's why we didn't get to that one. All right, well, we are going to do closing statements. You'll have 90 seconds. I'm going to start here on my left with Senator Larson.
Well, thank you very much. I had on my list of things to talk about SCR 604 as well, which you've nicely read the title of. I was surprised that no one asked, well, I guess one person did ask about this, but this is a bill that is, in my opinion, bringing I grew up with an idea that there was a separation between church and state, and that was a main part of our democracy. And even as I grew up going to church as an old school Lutheran, we just did, it wasn't even political. Now we are getting to the point where we are having 1890s revival style, born again sessions on the Senate floor. And that to me is just, it's shocking. I was absolutely shocked, and I was absolutely shocked that some of my Republican colleagues were fine with it. So I just think, I encourage you guys to pay attention to these other resolutions and things that may not seem like they mean a lot in terms of our budget or our huge big three, but actually really are not constitutional, might be illegal. And I just really encourage you to write to your senators and your representatives about these bills that I think over the long term really just erode separation of church and state and basic civics.
Thank you, Representative Healy.
I just want to thank everyone for coming today. One of the issues that I heard was mentioned was an abortion bill. I believe it's 1212, and it was mentioned that basically miscarriages would be considered an abortion. So we need to have a serious conversation about that and recognize that women deserve good access to health care. And we need to recognize that OB-GYNs in the state are going and are already leaving this state because of the oppressive policy that is being created by some of our colleagues, and that's unacceptable. We want to ensure that women, especially in rural areas, have access to health care and have a good ability to be able to have children. And if we're now telling them that their miscarriage is going to be considered an abortion, and that when their OB-GYNs are leaving this state, we're putting them even at further risk of being prosecuted. And that is just absolutely wrong. Thanks for being here. This is my last session for some time. I've really enjoyed these moments with you. And I'm really looking forward to being on the other side of things and engaging in conversations as a community member.
Thank you, Representative Weems.
Thank you. Thanks for having us today. It's been a change of area where we have these over the last 20 years, as has been many things in the legislature. So since I served before until now, a lot of things have changed. The process is still the same, which is a great process. But there's just, you look at what's happened. We've changed from paper bills to electronic bills. There's good and bad with those changes. The topics that occur are education, taxes, our schools. Those have been issues and how we fund things, how we tax things, all of this. These have been issues really since our statehood, and they're going to continue to be issues. And so we're going to keep having to have the discussions. As you see the long list of all the topics we covered today, it's hard for us to be experts in all of those things. And so I, as a legislator, rely on the process that bills go through committee and hopefully the bad ones get killed and that we only see the good ones on the House floor. That's not always the case anymore. So we have to have the discussions now on the House floor. So one thing I will say is I've hardly gotten any emails this year, so email your legislator.
Thank you, Representative Jameson.
Well, thank you. First off, I would have to say I appreciate the dialogue we've had today. I was here last year, and we kind of were tested maybe a little bit. And what's going to happen next is when Carrie and I and others go back to the legislature, we're going to be asked about this event today. And was it good to come to? How was it? And it was very good. So thank you first for that. That's going to improve this for you as you get feedback from more legislators as they show up to this setup. A lot of things have happened since our last time we were here. The new prison was built. We're starting authorized. and the location was settled. And we're also now on this other task force of determining programming and treatment for those individuals. I would just tell you, we have gone a long way on this whole discussion. As Republicans, we focused on the building and the dollar amount and the penalties for these people to go into prison. And the Democrats carried the side of taking care of the individuals and programming. The Republicans have joined with them on that topic. Together, we are together at least focused on treating those people and trying to help them when they come back into our community. So that's a great story to tell. Oftentimes we're still divided, but that's one place where we've come together. I've got multiple bills that I'm going to bring, and if I could stop the, see?
Oh, there's your time.
The 90 seconds just goes by, but thank you again for having us.
All right. Well, thank you to our sponsors today, the Cheeseman Center for Democracy at the University of Sioux Falls, or University of South Dakota, AARP South Dakota, Change Agents of South Dakota, Sioux Falls Education Association, UFCW Local 304A, Southeast Technical College, Media One, and the South Dakota Advocacy Network for Women. In addition, we'd like to thank our sign language interpreters from Interpreter Services, Inc., as well as our great volunteers that make this event happen. Of course, we want to thank our legislators not only for their contributions to today's coffee, but their service to the citizens in the Sioux Falls area. Let's give our elected officials a round of applause. And finally, we thank you, the audience, for giving voice to your issues and concerns. And we invite you to our remaining legislative coffee, which will be held Saturday, February 21st at 10 a.m. right here, where we'll hear from legislators from districts 13, 14, and 15, as well as the legislators who could not make the event today. Please note that events like this are not possible without our partners and without donations from people like you. So feel free to leave a donation for the League of Women Voters at the back of the room or through our fund at the Sioux Falls Area Community Foundation. Have a great day, and thanks for coming. Thank you very much.
Yes, of course. Thank you.
Awesome.